You want water? In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, one God, Amen. We're live now, and we wanna thank you all for coming. As you know, today we are talking about raising kids in a secular world. So we've got a panel of experts with us today. We've got 2 school principals in Abuna Tadros and John. We've got 2 former teachers in Abuna Habib Gerges and Abuna Michael. We've got 2 wonderful parents in Abuna Krollos and Rosemary. Both of them, their children ducks their year levels. And we've also got 2 psychologists in Rosemary and Maria. So we've got a wonderful panel of experts when it comes to parenting that we'll use. Before we start, Abuna Tadros will start us off with a quick prayer, and then we'll start off with firing some questions.
In the name of the Father, of the Son, of the Holy Spirit, the one God, Amen. We thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord, very much for this wonderful opportunity to give us, O Lord, to come together and talk about our children and our youth, young people, how to help them and how to support them in this world full of challenges and these difficult times. We ask you, Lord, to guide us and give us understanding and wisdom and lead us in our talks and our questions and answers. We ask you to give us the blessings and bless all the families, all those who attended, and make these meetings a source of benefit for everyone who attend or listen. And we ask you, Lord, to hear us through the intercession of Saint Virgin Mary and all the saints when we pray thankfully and say, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. In heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive trespasses. And lead us not temptation, Jesus Christ our Lord.
Thank you, Abuna, for the opening prayer. We want to start off, Abuna Tadros, with a question, a very interesting question that we think of as Coptic parents every day. And that question is, what skills can we teach our children to help themselves becoming confident and resist all the outside influences they see growing up?
Perhaps I will give just a quick talk about the gospel of this morning, for it was exactly for what you are planning to do. It says about the talents, the skills, which the Lord has given us. And I remember I was giving a short talk this morning, and I said, every child is born with skills. Nobody doesn't have skills, nobody ever. And so every human being created on earth, God has given them special gifts, special skills. When they are young, it's up to the parents to invest these skills and get them to become useful and good people. And when they grow, they start to use the reserve which has been given to them through their families, their churches, education, schools, and they start to progress in life. But what's the problem? The problem is that many people don't really know they have gifts. Many people don't invest in their skills and gifts which God has given them. And some people even don't know they have it. And I give an example, and I said, there's a lot of kids whom we say to them, they are naughty kids, very loud, very noisy. They don't stop. They keep running around. They keep doing this. And we keep perhaps blaming them, or perhaps blaming the parents. That's the parents leaving him to do like this. And they don't understand that those kids are doing this noise for a good reason. The good reason is that they are bored. They don't know what to do. They have not been given enough things to do in their life. And so they can do things, but nobody tells them what to do. And so they feel this emptiness. And this emptiness starts to make them look around to do something. And many kids who are really smart and really have the talents, but they feel they are not needed, and nobody really try to use them. So what they do, they try to attract attentions by making noise. They try to tell everyone around themselves, we are here. Why you don't take care of us? Why you don't talk to us? And they start jump up and around. And they try to find a way to attract attention by doing it in the place where they are not supposed to make noise. It's not that they are impolite, no. It is wants to say, what's about us? What about us? Do you need us? Do you want us to do something? Or just to bring us here just to have fun? Or just to keep telling us, keep quiet, don't talk, don't move, don't run, don't. It's a revolt. Revolt for they got something to give, and they cannot give it. And it's very, very noticed. I give you an example of this. Here in the church, our kids sometimes don't respect the church, don't respect Sunday school. But bring those same kids to the school and go to any foundation class, which are the 5 years old. They are very good sitting, working, quiet, cooperating, talking to each one another quietly, cooperating with the teachers. What's the difference? They are the same kids. The difference is they are given something to do. The teachers there respect them, respect their ability. They understand that those kids have good ability, and this ability is not used. And here you are. Sometimes we don't realize this. We don't realize that there's abilities. Well, I have seen many, many kids over the time, over years and years and years, who has started to close on themselves, try to find out where's their way, what to do, how to get their life on. Kids got talents, kids got skills. If we don't use them, there's some way else to be used. They can be started to become a source of trouble for everyone. They might like to read, and nobody gives them enough books. They might like to have sports, and nobody really helping them in sports. They might like to paint, and nobody really using this good imagination and good depths they have. There's a lot of things. In the same time, all these skills, without good spiritual bondage, to put them together, to make them have a good aim. The aim is not just to achieve for themselves, but achieve for others. Achieve to become good, useful people, useful for their churches, useful for the schools, useful for the community, useful for the whole world. I'm just giving this brief. I hope this gives a good background.
It's a beautiful answer, Abuna. And I actually came to school last week with the grade ones, and they're the same kids we have in Sunday school, but at school it was a very different environment. And one of the girls said, Abuna, I always see you at church. And in my head I said, yes, but at church you're always hitting and running, but here you're very, very organized. Abuna Habib Gerges, one of the parents asked a great question in that our kids come to church, they actually put a lot of effort in to serve, they pray very well, they do things very nicely, but then they come home and they're completely different. And as parents, it often makes the parents worried about their children, how they can have this great image outside, but at home they might be disappointed in certain things that they do.
I think برضو the same image, our image. Sunday school always keeps the kids are very busy with activities, with Bible study, with verses. And sometimes we don't have the same at home. As Abuna said, they feel bored. So we have to find out what we have to do at home. The house is extension of the church. I remember I read a message from a lady saying, we came here to Melbourne, but we don't have the address of the church. And I asked, what is your number? She said her number, and we visited her. I said, you came to the second house you are living in, and you are looking for the first house, which is the church. We try our best to make the church, the house is extension of the church. The kids here, as Abuna said, they are very happy because they are learning and learning and learning and always busy. So we have to keep the same atmosphere at home.
I love that, Abuna, and I think Otsak being a teacher and Abuna Habib and Abuna Michael being a teacher at school previously, you would have seen the children growing up. As parents, we want the best for our children, and we often want them to get the best grades and have the best academic results, but sometimes our kids are unable to achieve the results, Abuna, that maybe as parents which we would hope for them to see. What advice can Otsak give to us as parents?
When Joshua is 18, I could let you know the mistakes that we made. But I'll just refer to one very encouraging thing I read. And I think all of us could relate to this, even if we're parents or not, just as humans, that all of us that have experienced some sort of internal disappointment, if we're upset at ourselves that we didn't achieve something, when we go to another human being, say a friend or a priest or a parent, and we tell them, I didn't do as well as I wanted, but the look in their face is, that's okay, but I know your potential is here. How do we walk away? Reassured that everything's going to be okay. So I think they used to tell us this a lot at school, it's our role to look at the student and to see in them what they don't see in themselves. And we could use an example, like sometimes all of us go through a tough time, there's like a dark cloud over our mind. And we might go to a friend and vent or unload, but we find that the friend who attends to us under the cloud, but has a peace to them, is reassuring us that there's actually sun above the cloud. And one day the cloud will go away. And I think that's what the saints of the church do very well. And that's what our Lord Jesus Christ did, like when he called Matthew, the tax collector, Levi. Levi, being a tax collector, would have been an outcast of the Jewish community. But when he looked at him and he said, follow me, it says what? That on the spot, Levi left everything. And that means that the look that Christ gave him was like, Levi, you see yourself here, but I see you there. And I think that's what one of the beautiful gifts that we have in the church is that the church offers us always the encouragement that God sees us to a much higher potential than we ever see ourselves.
It's an open discussion, so feel free to. Abuna, one of the questions again that got asked is how long can kids concentrate? So we'll get this from the psychologists with us. How long can kids concentrate? And of course, during our church prayers, that's often surpasses their level of concentration. What can we do as parents and things like liturgies and things like sitting down quietly during a sermon? What can we expect and what support should we provide our children when attending services?
To help them to put up with long services and things like that.
And participate with us in church services.
I think it all comes to how we build them from the inside. If they see the parents genuine in their prayers at home and in their practice reading the Bible and living the church life at home and outside, they will grow this way and they will know their priorities and they will be naturally happy with what they're doing. Of course, kids at sometimes, according to their age, they cannot spend much time listening, but with regards to liturgical services, kids are usually, initially, sometimes they are distracted, but they actually store everything in their minds and in their hearts, and all of a sudden, at certain age, they show everything. And we've got examples in the kids that attend the church regularly and they seem distracted, but eventually you will hear them saying responses that sometimes on the altar or hymns outside as deacons that sometimes all the deacons struggle with. And they show skills and their voice is beautiful. Multiple cases we have like that. I think our tradition is very encouraging and is so genuine that if we live it to the most as parents, whatever we will do, our kids will be saturated with what we do. But if our priorities are stuffed up, their priorities will be stuffed up, because they learn by what they see more than by what they hear. So if we teach them something, but then we're doing the opposite, if, for example, we're giving more attention to their sports and tutoring than the relationship with Christ, they will grow up knowing inside that going to church is a duty that I do. But my life is about my education and my sports and everything else. But if we teach them that I can, when the comparison comes, do I go to church or go to my sports, I choose church, or at least do once here and once there. We have this issue with the Deacons School on Sunday. A lot of kids have soccer training on Sunday and matches. And parents do, one Sunday they come to Deacon School and one Sunday they go to sports. But those who decide that it's very important for my kid to learn sport, which is right, which is true, but they put this more important than church, the outcome will be different. And kids, they learn. When they see our behavior this way, they learn that this is more important than that. And when they grow up with priorities right, they digest that and they react to that, and they show this in their lives, I think.
Is there a formula to how long a child can concentrate? Say a primary school child at a certain age.
So the general rule, as an example, the general rule as an example, and it's just a rough example. So one of the things that we tell our servants in Sunday school at church at St. John and St. Verena's, because we take care of primary school, we say whatever the age of the child is, double that, and that's that sweet spot in terms of attention. So if I have a 6-year-old in grade 1, then I'm going to go for about 12 minutes. Now that doesn't mean that we, after the 12 minutes, then say, okay, go home, that's it. We're just talking about really trying to have them take away something meaningful. And please correct me, so feel free. I'm no expert, but this is generally what we do. We go, whatever the age of the child is, double that. Now, what we want is the meaning. So in that 12 minutes, in that optimum space, we want to make sure that we're really maximising on what it is that they're getting out of it. So as an example today, one of the lessons that we use was, if the Bible verse or the lesson that we want is for them to be able to read the Bible, well then I'm not going to use lots of words. I'm going to try to stick to that 10 to 12 minutes as an example, but I want to use an object lesson to maximise the impact and the meaning. So I'm quite quirky when it comes to things, everyone knows this. So I'll get 2 cups, I'll get hot water, and I'll put water in one and water in the other. I'll get a tea bag, which is the Word of God, and I'll dunk it in. We'll read Proverbs 3:16, which is about the Word of God residing within us richly, and they get it. They experience it. So I'm using that 12 minutes in such a way that they're trying to really take away the meaning from it. And then, of course, we'll bookend it with a song, with an activity, with something that's really hands-on that they can walk away with to get that fellowship as well. So that's the general rule, like in Sunday school. If we're talking about church or liturgies, we want to be able to use that time to be able to say, well, it's not just start to finish. We need to break it down. And this goes for high schoolers too in some ways. We go, well, it's broken up into 7 parts. The first part is, the second part is. So I'm using language like, where are we, which part, what could we be doing in each part? So we know that the service is roughly between 1.5 to 2 hours, but it's 7 parts. And in each part, something really different and important is happening. How are you going to engage? And we're going to use their senses. And we're going to go, okay, in this part you want to watch. In this part you want to close and you want to smell. In this part you want to. And so you're breaking it up and you're really targeting it in that way. And we know that it's good for them. So we're almost using the different times, the different lengths. We don't get to necessarily say how long is the liturgy. That is just a beautiful experience, but we want them to be engaged with it as much as possible. And so we're just trying to target them and engage with them and talk to them in different ways.
I think, like with the liturgy in particular, like obviously it's a lot longer than probably their attention spans, or attention spans in general, depending on our brains. But I think like a lot of the time we reckon our kids in the liturgy, for example, aren't listening because yes, they love to run around and they want to be engaged with an adult that they really love or whatever it may be. But I think like kids are taking in a lot more than we think they are. So Patty, I'm using Leah as an example in what I'm going to say, but little Leah, 4 years old, like I always bring my little, I like to call my Sunday liturgy bag because I have a lot of items to bribe kids to sit and be entertained with, so stickers and notebooks and whatever. And little Leah was having a lot of fun with stickers and putting them in the book and things like that. During one of Abuna Michael's sermons, Abuna Michael was talking about like plants and grafting and spiritual growth. And Abuna was talking about what happens when a plant sprouts. And so you don't think Leah's listening because she's so engrossed in this notebook, but Leah turns up and says, "What sprouts? What does sprouts mean?" I said, it's when a plant grows. And she says, so that means I'm sprouting. And so it was really cute. It was really sweet. But I think our kids, like we might we might tell them, sit still, don't talk, don't annoy this person or whatever it may be. But in actual fact, it's probably what, giving them something tangible to, be able to keep them entertained that might actually help them to focus on the liturgy as well. And so if a child is, feeling as though it's, there's an obligation to sit still and an obligation to do nothing, they may inevitably get bored and they may not enjoy coming to church and may start kicking up a fuss. But if they're able to, to have another relationship cultivated and they're able to, ask their questions during the liturgy and be taught how to sing along and things like that. And at some point, after their 12-minute attention span's finished, they may need to, go outside for a second before coming back in. I think all those things are probably very well and good.
Amazing. What are your thoughts? I want to ask the whole panel open question, but what are your thoughts about the new I see some churches now talking about a children's liturgy, where the liturgy is just for children. The readings are modified, and I know there's mixed opinions and different things. I'd love to hear any of the panel members what their thoughts are.
Let me tell you our experience. I remember when you might, if some of the older group here can remember, when Abuna Tedros Ya'ub came to Melbourne. He came to Melbourne 1977. And when he came here, he found that all the liturgies are either in pure Coptic or Arabic. And the kids are not really there at all. But at that time, most of the kids at that time would stick to their parents and sit and try to listen, but they lose concentration, of course. And that was the first thing he put a big effort into it, is to start to make a liturgy book in English, which is suitable for the children and young people. We still have copies of this book until now. And he got two nice deacons or three deacons at the time and asked them to work on this one. And the only translation for the liturgy at that time was a very old English translation, was done by Iris Habib al-Masri, if anyone remembers this name. She is the same lady, she passed away now. She is the same person who has wrote the 8 volumes of church history, and they have been compacted in 2 volumes in English. But her English was very academic. Is a very academic. She's a professor. She's very academic in her English. So we started to work on a liturgy book, much simpler. And it came a beautiful one. If you remember, if I don't know if I think with the one we have now, when we start to put Arabic with it and we put English in Arabic and English letters and things like that, that is the black one which we're still using until now. That came from this edition which Abuna Tadrus Ya'ub did through the help of those deacons. It was simple, it was easy, and I remember he said, when you are praying to the children, it should not be too long. Try to make it as short as possible. It's not to take parts out of the liturgy, but to say it simply and try to not them to lose concentration. So a liturgy for children used to take maximum 1 hour and a half. We used to stay 3 hours in liturgy at that time. And so we almost halved the liturgy at that time. It was a very good work, a very good experience. And it has been redeveloped again and again until I think His Holiness, of course, Pope Shenouda III at the time, called us for a panel in Egypt to refine the English translation. And I was one member of this panel. And we went to Egypt, I think this one was 1990 or something like that, or 1989, so around this time. We had professors from the universities, we have professors in Coptic language, we have Abuna Tadrus Ya'ub was there, we have also other priests were there, and we came out with a beautiful English tradition, very simple, very easy to use. It is the one you are all using now. It is this one. And so it has been adapted especially for the children. There is nothing to be called, we have to have a very quick liturgy for the children. Quick, this means you lose concentration again. It has to be simple and easy, and try to use the most important things which you need for the liturgy. And also remember something very important. Kids love music. Kids love hymns. Why we make a liturgy when the kids don't sing on it? Give them a time to sing. At the time also, 50 years ago, most of the Coptic hymns, to translate it in English, became so hard to say. It was not very well tuned and very hard to say. That was also a job of this panel in 1989, where we refined all the Coptic translation of the hymns. And we came with this simple one, easy English suitable for our kids outside Egypt, and it worked very well. So now perhaps we need more of this. We need more, and we need to refine it even more and get it better. It's not shorten it, it's make it appealing to the children. A language they can understand, not the difficult languages of the academic books, but a very simple language which everyone can remember. I remember when I came to Australia, I came to Melbourne, not Australia. It was, I think I came 1977, and Abuna Tadrus Ya'ub was still here. And I remember I met with some of the Sunday school servants at that time. And they started to show me, to tell me how they say the hymns. It was so beautiful. I still have one of these tapes. They said it very simple, very easy, very quick. Imagine the deacons used to spend 15 minutes to say a very long Coptic hymns, which kids could not follow up. But this was a very easy and very simple. Also, as a matter of, we went even further, getting the children to learn properly. Learn Coptic hymns, and here we have the School of Deacons now has done a great job. Every time I look at the English Mass, and I found about 30, 40 kids there, and they are all singing. I usually look there and admire them, for I remember the time when only 1 or 2 deacons were responding. Now we have 30 kids responding. It's beautiful, they loved it. And the kids love music, and this music is appealing to them. They used to tell us, the Coptic music is dull. Kids will not love it. No, it's not true. They love it. They love it and they say it. And so encourage them and let parents say it with them. Let the kids also start to be applauded for what they are saying. It's beautiful, let them do it. They will say it at home, they will say it at school, they will say it here, everywhere. It makes them very good. So we need liturgy adapted to the children, not by reducing it, but making it more approaching to them, to their mentality, their ability. Don't use very difficult English. Don't use big words. Don't use very Coptic hymns. If deacons don't say it, only one deacon say it, don't say it. I'm sorry to say this. If I have a Coptic hymn, which only one of 20 deacons, only one can say it, we don't need it.
I remember Otsak actually in one of the liturgies, one of the deacons asked Otsak, and I was one of the deacons, and he said, unless you all know it, not to say it.
It's a congregation. It's a congregation response. It's not one single person response. We need everyone to respond. That's why teach it to them, then come and say it. Say, many kids will come and say, can we say this hymn, Abuna? I say, do you know it? Say, no. I say, okay, you say it. You say it. We love to hear it from you. From you, it's beautiful. It's nice. And the kids now have learned a lot. Let us encourage them. And let us also, these very long Coptic hymns, which nobody know it, or only few people know it, let us teach it to the kids gradually until they know it, then we all say it. But there is no need to sit here for 20 minutes hearing, oh, 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 oh. And everyone loses concentration. Now we want to oh. This is the Holy Church singing, the Holy Church singing, not only children, dads and moms, everyone is a church singing. Our church is a congregation church. It's not a single person church. Not like the Greek or other churches where only the priest and one or two deacons are responding, and that's it. And of course, the kids are lost, especially they hear a language they don't know. But if all the church is singing, it makes difference. It makes difference. It makes big difference.
This is one of the blessings of when we got growing up, having the church and the spirit of unity in prayer. But one of the other blessings Otsak gave us was the Coptic school, and I think we grew up in a Coptic school, which helped us. But John is a close friend of mine, and I speak to him as a principal of some of the things that he sees. So maybe, John, if you could shed some light on the things that our parents might not know our children go through growing up in schools in a secular world with friends that might not be Christian or Coptic.
It's a very broad question, Abuna. I guess the most important thing for me as a parent, but not just a parent, but a teacher and a principal, is that your child is immersed in the church, and whether it be, they come to Sunday school and they come to church on a Sunday, or they're more involved on a social level with children at church, or the relationships they have with Abuna. I think there has to be a level of immersion with the church, whether they go to the Coptic school or they don't. There has to be that level of, I guess, intense immersion with the church and what they're all about. I'll use my personal example. My son goes to a Christian school, and it's a very broad Christianity. They're not in any specific religion. However, he relates everything he learns at school and at church together, and we talk him through that. And I guess the biggest thing about it is our relationship with him, and the level of conversation that we have with him about what he learns at school and what he learns at church, and how they both relate and intertwine. I think that is a massive thing, and even not just on a religious level, but on whether he's learning about science or he's learning about something academic, and bringing it back to the church and what we believe in. There's always a lot of questions, especially science related, and how it relates to God, and he pushes our limits sometimes, and Google's our best friend at times, but that they're the sort of conversations that all parents need to promote with their children, I feel, to build that relationship and build that trust in God, as well as building the trust with your child in what you're saying. You genuinely believe in it in the church, and you genuinely believe that what he's learning at school is also true and correct. might pass on to the two psychologists next to me. Might take it up another level.
Specifically, was there anything?
Maybe as parents we're not aware of that goes on at schools that we probably should be aware of.
Yeah. I think that the most interesting thing I think was just that personal relationship. We just want it to be so personal. So whether we're talking about the liturgy, a kid's liturgy, it's about participation and it's about personal experience. It's about a hands-on. It's about something, because what we know is that when they're having fun, they won't let us off the hook. If they're playing a game, their attention span is just fine. So it's about the experience that they're having, whether it's school and academia, whether it's their own personal interests, whether it's here at the church. It's about how personal it is and how individual it becomes. And it's about seeing it through their eyes and meeting them at their level more than anything else. I think that's where the real power is. So when we're actually opening up that dialogue, it doesn't matter what you have to say about whatever topic. I'm here to listen, and I'm interested, and I'm curious, and I'm looking at you, and I am delighted in your mere existence and your perspective, and that's really interesting. And sometimes as parents, I don't know about you, but sometimes I'm like, oh dear, that's interesting, it's surprising, I'm not quite comfortable with that. That's just as a mother. But as, you know, as a clinician, we're like, oh, that's okay. So you're always having to lean into that. We want to make sure that we're almost always seeing the best in them and their curiosity, their experience, and we're wanting to encourage that connection. And so nothing's off limits, and we want to be able to take it wherever they want to be able to. I mean, this is the thing about a personal experience or the identity of the child. We want them to know, we want to see them through Christ's eyes. We want them to see themselves through Christ's eyes and not through necessarily the eyes of their friends. And so their relationship with us and our relationship with them and their relationship with church, I think, is, of course, the most important and the most powerful. And sometimes even we as parents have to remind ourselves they're not ours. You know, because sometimes we'll go, oh, I didn't teach you that, and how come you're not like, you know, why are you like that? But you're not mine. I'm just, you know, this guardian of yours.
Can I just add, sorry. Rosemary touched on the dialogue that we have with our children. I think that that's so essential. I can guarantee every parent in this room has asked their child, how was school? Good. What did you learn today? I don't remember. That conversation is guaranteed to happen. And so, you know, you start to learn more open-ended questions that you can ask your child about how their day was. You know, a couple of easy ones is, what was your favourite thing that you did today? And what was the worst thing that happened to you today? It may not be something you want to hear as a parent, but it opens up that dialogue between you and them that something bad probably did happen to you, and that's okay, and that, you know, let's talk about it and see what happened, and problem solve together. And, you know, if that becomes a habit, then rather than you actually asking, they'll end up coming to you and say, the worst thing today happened to me, this and this happened. And you can engage in that conversation a lot more naturally.
Communication with kids is very, very, very important. We have many and lots of problem of parent asking and saying, our kids look themselves in their room with the internet and the iPad and we're very rare to see our kids. I think the problem is lack of communication. Lack of communication. As John said, sometimes we never ask them what the day was in the school. And the reaction of us as parents, a girl said to me, Abuna, I said a problem to my mother, and she said, Ya Lahwi. And I scared. And she asked me later on, what is your problem? I didn't say anything. Because the reaction is really lack of communication. Lack of communication is very important. Communication is very important.
But I think the type of communication of what we ask is important too. I know as parents, sometimes our first question is, so how was your day? Did you get any homework? Do the emotional stuff first. This is just a personal. I'm never going to tell anyone what to do. Connect first. The homework will come up later, because they're supposed to be able to rest in us. We really need them to rest in us. We need to help them sort through all the emotion of what they've just taken on for 7 hours, which is someone yelled at me, someone had a go at me, someone told me something, I don't know how I feel about that, someone asked me something, I just heard something that's a little bit contrary to what we believe, someone asked me to go to a party and I know you're not going to let me, and all of that stuff is happening for 7 hours. You got to give them a minute. We really have to prioritize the connection piece, and sometimes we as parents are really, really tired too at the end of the day. So we have to almost kind of give ourselves a minute to be able to poise, to pray, to get ready, to allow them to connect, and then we kind of help them sort through all the other stuff as well.
Guys, remember, this is an open discussion, so if you put your hand up, one of the servants will come with a mic and you can ask any questions, or you can put it on the Slido. But one of the questions that a lot of people have liked is the question of screen time. So not personal connection, but personal devices. What are your thoughts on personal devices and the impact they have on children growing up? Abuna whispered that Rosemary is the expert on this one.
Rose, I don't know how much you want to share, but you could share probably what you shared at the last parenting thing about what you did with your family, if you're comfortable to share. Because I think that when I heard what you did, I was very impressed and scared if I would ever be able to come close to that when my kids are older.
Okay, so I think the elephant in the room is what I did. So as a professional, we're always really conscious about the impacts of devices and what it does to the brain. So we know that brain development takes its course. We want to give the brain enough time. We want to be able to connect with them. We want to be able to regulate their emotions. We want them to develop capabilities. See, kids don't develop necessarily confidence out of us praising them. They develop confidence and identity in who they are by doing and feeling competent. That's how they develop confidence. So as you know, as a professional, I'm always really interested in the kind of the thousands of engineers that sit out there that program, you know, apps to make it as addictive as possible, to flood the brain with as much dopamine that exhausts our pleasure center. So I have real concerns as a professional, and that translated into my own personal parenting strategies at home, where I kind of, my husband and I saw devices as potentially taking a lot of the focus away from the kids, their own personalities and their own development. We figured they got enough device time at school, so, you know, and we can kind of control how much device time they kind of had at home, but we chose not to give them devices until after high school was finished.
That's good.
So that was really controversial, and I'm not saying it was right or wrong, it was just a personal choice of ours. So our eldest had a phone, a dumb phone, an analog phone that school required her to have at various outings, but she didn't get a smartphone till after high school. It's not that we didn't want her to have friends or social connections, because I know a lot of the time as parents it's our own anxiety. We want them to be okay, and we want to know where they are, and we want to know that their friends aren't leaving them out, and all of those things that are very real. But we just kind of assessed the risks, and we chose not to kind of go in that direction.
Rosemary, how did you navigate the conversations with, what do you mean I'm not having a phone? So high school, so till 18 years old, till they finished year 12, there was no smartphone. Was there social media?
No.
No Facebook, no Instagram, no TikTok.
No.
How did you navigate that with the kids? Because I can imagine they wouldn't have been, they probably were the only kids.
Yes.
And that's a very hard thing to navigate.
Yes. So my eldest is 18. She finished year 12 last year. I mean, I said this, I think, in the last talk. I was curious to see how much longer I could push it. I was going for 20, but my husband caved, and as soon as she was done her last exam, he went and got her one, and that's fair enough. And we had discussed what social media looked like. Really, all we were trying to do was delay it as long as possible. That's all we were trying to do. Delay, delay, delay. And what does that mean? It means that it's not a, I perhaps grew up in a generation, God bless my parents, I love them and I miss them, but it's because we said. I didn't necessarily go down that path. We have daily conversations. So our second born is 13 and it's still a daily conversation. It is daily, and it's also offering alternatives. It's us turning up as an alternative, and it's us developing them and investing in them. So I can't just say no devices and hope for the best. Well, I have to give them an alternative, and the alternative a lot of the time is us. It's a little bit unfashionable and it's a little bit geeky, but we didn't want them to orient towards their friends and their opinions, which often the time, we want to give them devices so they don't have to be left out, but oftentimes what's happening is they are orienting and turning to their friends at a time where we're hoping that we still have an influence on them more than anything else. So it's daily conversations and it's compromise and with my eldest it was your friends can contact you on my phone, and I never opened the chats, and she had some liberties with that, and it was alternatives, and she was really active in terms of extracurricular and co-curricular activities. And so we want them again to feel capable and confident and to kind of go in that direction. But we just saw it as too much of a threat, and we were more concerned about it than our desire to, not have the arguments.
That's fantastic. Well done. I think we all aspire to be able to do something like that. I want to know, what are some of the challenges our kids face? This is a question received by being on social media or being online. What are some challenges that they face, and if there's anything that can affect their development?
Sorry. I think, look, like obviously everything in moderation. I will put a disclaimer. Oh, sorry, close enough. I'll put a disclaimer in. I did my PhD on things around screens, so I may be maybe leaning a little. I'm not leaning one side or another, but everything in moderation. And so I think, like Rosemary was saying, like there is a lot of potential for things to go wrong, and the onus is essentially on parents to be able to structure the routine and the rules and things like that around screens if you are intending on having screens and setting up the time there. So a lot of kids will overuse screens and know that they can get away with it because they may say 5 more minutes, and then by the time the next 5 minutes comes around, like mum may have forgotten to kick kiddo off the screen, or classic one when we were in our household growing up, like Bob is Skyping family in Egypt now, and so I can finally get away with having them busy for another half hour so I can finish this game, but like the onus is essentially on parents to be able to give their kids a structure and a routine to be able to do something outside of screens as well, and to be able to show them that there are going to be some really awesome alternatives to just playing Fortnite for 3 hours every night, I guess. But with social media, I mean, like nowadays there's probably a lot of like safe apps now with like Messenger Kids, it's all very heavily monitored from what I know. I have not been on Messenger Kids myself, but have read great things about it. And so I think like there's a lot of things that are heavily monitored, but the danger is when I guess kids may not have the close monitoring and may not have those restrictions, and they may go outside the boundaries of who they're allowed to talk to and things like that. And then of course comes the thing that everyone loves to do, which is comparing themselves to everyone else. All of a sudden on social media, we may see like a lot of posts around, what these other kids are doing every weekend, and what this cool new toy that this other kid's posting about, and all these sorts of things. And so kids start to compare, and then the other thing is comparing appearances and all the rest of it, and wanting to look like their peers, and wanting to shape themselves to look like people they see online. So obviously, again, everything has its pros, but in terms of the dangers that come up with that, those are probably the classic main things. But I'm not a parent myself, but I think as parents, like the main job is to be you know, to be able to have those open conversations and dialogues, you know, like John was saying before. And there may be some times where your kid may just, you know, shut the door in your face and, you know, fine, you know, don't, all is good, you know, those two-word sharp, you know, sharp responses. But I think like not being discouraged by that and not getting angry at your kid for not wanting to talk, because they're guaranteed to not want to talk if you know, push them to talk when they're not ready to do that. But just keeping the dialogue open and knowing that they'll come to you when they're ready as well. Yeah.
I just want to ask a question. You know, in our time and age, kids, like especially the teenagers, you ask them one question or to do one thing, they do the opposite. How can you make them listen and do the right thing? And because you tell them this, like you put a statement saying that, can you please do this and that? But either they don't do it, they don't listen and do it, they just do the opposite. So what sort of methodology can you share us to use to make this, you know, make them listen and do the right thing? Thank you.
I'm not sure who the question is directed at, but they're all looking at me for some reason. So I guess the preventative strategies that you put in place to start off with around routine and structure with your child and the expectations and how you initially reward them meeting those expectations. So I'll use very basic examples, but if it's helping do the dishes, if it's cleaning their room, if it's making their bed, whatever it is that an expectation of them that you have put on them, or you know that it's not an expectation from when they're young and now you're trying to implement it? So I guess the question really lies as to, you know, sometimes the argument with positive behaviour strategies is that, oh, that's what they're expected to do, they should just do it, I shouldn't have to reward them. But if you want the behaviours to continue and those positive behaviours to be displayed, you have to continue to reward them. Yes, the reward will be different from when they're 6 to when they're 16, but there has to be an element of reward, and it doesn't mean you go to, you know, Target and buy them a $100 gift, but it is that consistent reward that they know that's the expectation, they're going to do it, and this is what they're going to get in return. And yes, that may not work. I'm not saying that works 100% of the time, and those with teenagers probably can will have a different opinion, but in a school setting, it's very similar. And teachers have that argument, is why we're rewarding the kids. They should know that's what's expected of them. If you don't teach the behaviour that you want them to see, they're never going to display it. So if you model it, if you reward it, you should expect to see it. And on the flip side of that is obviously consequences. Obviously, we're not saying you know, punish your children, but do they know, you know, if their room's not made by, you know, if their room's not clean, they get to go to soccer training that night, or whatever the reward is, or whatever you're going to do for them. So there has to obviously be a balance, but as a parent, you know, building that relationship with your child and knowing what makes them tick, I guess, in a way, is the basis for that.
I think the thing that we have to watch for sometimes, and please, is always the power struggle with teenagers. They want to enter into a bit of a power struggle with us, and we have to be really, really careful about that, to not make it a power struggle, because they really want that fight sometimes. So I'm always really curious about where that resistance is. If my child is usually very conscientious, then I'm wondering why they're resisting. If they're usually someone who's very forgetful, I wonder what strategies I can put in place to help them. If they're a kid who's just really overwhelmed right now and they're acting out, what are their actions telling me about what's going on? Like I often hear from parents, clients who will come in going, they're such a great kid, but they just won't. And I'm like, I'm curious about that. And I wonder, depending on the age, whether sometimes we even share that curiosity with our kids. Again, we're seeing the best in them. And I'm saying things like, you know, for such a conscientious kid, you always do this and this, and you're just so amazing at it. But when it comes to this area, I always feel like there's a bit of a pushback. I'm wondering about that. I'm always inviting them in to a bit of a conversation. Like often with teenagers, we talk about this idea of going through the back door. How was your day? All right. You got any homework? No. You know, do this. No, I don't want to. It's just the front door. You just kind of get it slammed in your face all the time. With teenagers, we always kind of want to go in the back door. And we're like, you know, I'm really wondering about this. And we always start with I see you, I know you, I see the best in you. And the reason why I'm frustrated as a parent is I'm tired, I just want you to do it, it's for your own good. None of that area in the brain is actually developed. The consequence, the risk assessment, all that stuff comes later, like 25 plus. It comes over time. So we also have to meet them at their level, and sometimes, you know, I often will tell my clients, you know, just be curious. Be curious and don't enter into the battle with them, because we're usually the ones that get tired and and have to shut it down. It's just personal.
I'm not gonna talk as a professional because I'm not a psychologist or a principal, but as a parent, the more you have friendship with them from a young age, this will form the foundation for the communication later on when they become arguing more in the teenage period, yani. And to be friend with them, you need to lean down to them and accompany them in the growth, because a little one cannot grow to your level, but you have to be as little as them and accompany them in a true friendship and find what areas you can share with them, whether it's playing sports or spending time talking about something or something that's beneficial, that's not a time waste. And choose the thing that you can communicate more. Yani, if you have the chance to play with them a sport or watch a movie, play the sport. Because watching a movie, you're not probably spending much time with them, but playing a sport, you're engaging, and you being a genuine true friend with them. And this, when you're friends, then when you say something, they will listen. And at the teenage period, when they are really argue and debate a lot, even at this time, you can still communicate. The other thing is, a lot of the time, we have focus in mind as parents that we want them to do the right thing. And this is correct. But when we give this all our attention to this only, then we might break our bonds with them. Sometimes you need to make concessions to keep them in this area of love and friendship. And I'm not saying you authorize the wrong, no, don't get me wrong, but don't be too focused on discipline, and then you lose the bond with them, because this is dangerous to the relationship.
I'm just going to add a point to what we've discussed lately for that last question. I think Abuna just said something that I just want to say, is just to build this relationship with our kids. And that's something that we need to do all the time and from early age as well. Something that I've experienced is that sometimes we just want things done, and then as parents we see this as a priority. So as kids, sometimes they do have a really bad day, or there's something going in their minds, and we don't respect that. So it's something that we have to respect them as long as, and they have to respect us as well. I'm just going to share a quick example. I'm a teacher myself at school, primary, and I had period 5, grade 6, which is I love. So that day, I don't know, I was a bit stressed, I don't know, I had a big day. So then they are a very challenging class. And then I was just telling quickly, pack up your bags, let's go to the Italian room, and blah, blah. So they were so challenging. I had lots of behaviors. They've seen me before. They know me from before, but I had a very long break. And then when they saw me, it was like as if they've seen a new teacher. They haven't seen the life. And then I had, as if it was like just the first day of teaching, or I've been teaching for a long time. Anyway, so, and then I had to talk to my leadership team about it, and I was really frustrated, very stressed. I was like, no, I'm gonna fail with this class. So then what happened is that I just reassessed my teaching strategies again, and then the following week, I had them again. So actually, they line up outside in front of their class after lunchtime. So what I did, I asked them, let's just sit down on the ground, and we actually sat down, and then we had a talk. This is what we're doing, this is what we're doing. And then we went back to the class. I said to them, look, we're going to change things around. You're going to tell me what, like we're going to do table points or whatever, and then I said to them, there will be rewards for those table points, right? And then I said, I'm not going to put these rewards for you. You're actually going to put it down in a piece of paper and put in that little tub, and then I'm going to take all your suggestions. So I don't know, but I feel like it's just having that rapport with them and not getting into a battle with them that really made a difference, and it was such a great lesson. I was like, this is really great. So I feel like building the relationship, I'm not saying that I'm the best parent, but I'm trying. Relationship is really good, and not getting into the battle with them, that's really important as well.
Just one question. How we deal with kids with ADHD and mental illness in our community as servants and church congregation or community?
Sorry, a follow-up question. What sort of challenges do you see in like that you're referring to with like ADHD and other things like that? Is there anything?
So of course we've got some kids with ADHD and mental illness. So as we are servant, how we deal with them? So that's my question. And sometimes some people, they don't know what problem these kids they have, and especially if they're not professional. هيقولوا أشقية وخلاص يعني there's just naughty kids, but there's big difference between naughty and mental illness. There's big difference between naughty kids and disability, some kids with disability. So how we deal with them in our community, in our church, as a servant and youth, and how not to offend them or offend their family especially.
Look, I think, you know, obviously there's like challenges inherent in everything. Like you might have a young kid with ADHD, and the challenge is that they love to have a chat about absolutely anything and everything. And you may have a kid who's very, very anxious, and they may be very fearful of engaging with other people. I think every I guess diagnosis or disorder has a those generic sort of challenges attached to them, but something that we were always taught in our studies was around when thinking about how to deal with someone is trying to see them outside the lens of the diagnosis. So because I think again you can sort of guess on paper that based on this kid having ADHD, for example, that they may present with these things, but I think sometimes there may be that may overtake trying to get to know the kid as an individual, and getting to know what their individual challenges are, and then being able to connect with them on that level, and being able to better understand what this kid individually needs, rather than what does a child with ADHD or a child who's depressed need. But so being able to, I think, inquire, be curious, like Rosemary was saying before, always be curious and ask them, specifically what they feel they need, and get to know them as though you were their friend at their, at their age, I think would help a lot with that. and then I think from there you can figure anything out with kids that present with anything in Sunday school. But I guess the other thing is you know, sometimes kids, you know, again, like I'm going to the ADHD example because I think you know, things around ADHD and autism come up quite a bit, you know, as something that may be misunderstood in our communities, and it may be seen as something that is, you know, makes a child deficient in some way when that may not actually be the case. And I think it's important for us to, you know, be able to understand that, you know, all kids, you know, with ADHD or autism or whatever it may be, you know, have a lot of strengths as well. And, you know, it doesn't make them, it's not a bad thing that they may present as, you know, different, I suppose. You know, but I think, you know, obviously we all have our differences, and, you know, it may be due to 1,001 different things, but we hone in on the ADHD and autism as being a very big difference, probably more than it needs to be. So I think being able to understand that these kids have their strengths and that these differences don't necessarily mean that it's going to be a negative or a bad thing, and getting to know the kid personally rather than through a lens of this kid has this and therefore I'm going to do this.
Sorry, Marie, can I interrupt? Like, you know, sometimes it's disturbing, especially during the service, and sometimes disturb other kids. So how you approach the family if they need like professional support or professional treatment? It's a tricky area. How you approach the family as a servant, and how you go and tell the family maybe they need professional treatment. And now ADHD is very common now, very, very popular and common, needs treatment.
I guess my approach may be a bit different. Maybe you can talk to that, you know, what you would do instead. But I personally think that if like there's no point in, you know, if it's if you've got that, you know, cultivated that relationship with the family and the parents of the child, that, you know, there's nothing wrong with you know, flagging it to the parent and just saying it out of love, you know. I think it could be a tough pill to swallow, of course, for a lot of parents who may not understand much about it, but I think the negative reactions only really come from a lack of understanding and a lack of education as to what this may actually be. And so, you know, I think, you know, maybe part of our role is to be able to talk more openly about that, and to be able to, you know, like, for example, if there's a kiddo that, you know, doesn't stop running around and, you know, poking all the other kids and disrupting them, you know, being able to, you know, come at it from, you know, a place where that's not the only thing that you're seeing. Like, there's all these wonderful things, but, you know, these things seem like they're tough for the kid and tough for everyone. So why not seek another opinion? I'm probably a little bit more direct, which may not suit everyone. But yeah.
So what we know as an example is some families at Sunday school, as an example, some families will come to us and they'll say, our child has a diagnosis, and so we want to let you know. And so we'll always, of course, work with the parents about that, because, you know, when it comes to, you know, we're going to get, I don't know about you, but our Sunday school is at 4:30, and that's when we might get a bit of a bounce back, and we want to be aware of that, and we want to be prepared for that. And so we prepare our servants as well. So we usually use RASEE. It's a bit weird. I come up with stuff like this. Relationship first. If the kid falls in love with us, even their ADHD diagnosis, whether it's impulsive or inattentive, then they never want to upset us, and we never want to upset them. So that connection, when we visit them at home, actually creating such a bond between us, despite their challenges and their traits, when they know that we see the best in them and they see the best in us, diagnosis aside, we know the connection can be so strong, we can work through it. I is for intense exercise. I don't know about you, but sometimes we get shoes being thrown and biting and all sorts of interesting things, and we're like, right, let's go outside for a really quick run. And we will take them outside, we will go for a really quick run. And when the kid goes, but I didn't do anything wrong, you're like, you didn't. We just really need to get all this extra energy out, because I can see you've got all of this energy. And so we'll try things like intense exercise just to get that really quick dopamine hit and come back down wherever possible. Of course, it just depends week to week. We'll go with short, always go with a short type of they like the intensity of short lessons and really engaging. And when we can prepare them sometimes, just being able to go before the lesson, you know, we'll have a schedule. And the schedule is 4:30 to 4:45. We're going to sing and we're going to do Agbeya. 4:45 to 4:50. Then we're going to do X. 4:50 to 4:57, we're going to do Y. And when they get really irritable and you see them slipping, you're like, okay, you know, Bob. I'm going to use Bob because I don't think we have any Bobs. Bob, where are we? Quick, let the class know where we are. And so they're time watching. They can stay engaged. I've similar to Maria, I've got my Mary Poppins bag. I've got gadgets, and each of our classrooms at church has a box of gadgets where we're like, okay, if you need a special cushion, if you need something, and it's not more distraction. It's we know this kid is really trying and they're really struggling, so we'll do that. And then we're trying to make it engaging environment, engaging content. We're going to use an object lesson wherever possible. We're going to use a good environment. We don't want to cram them in with no windows, no light, no air, no water, and expect them. So if I need them to go out for a water, then I'll say, okay, go for your water break. Okay, so if you feel it coming up, go for your water break and you come right back, okay? And so you give them the confidence that you're trying to work with them wherever possible. So sometimes we try to do that in class as well, just to be able to, and we really want to let our servants know that sometimes the goal of the lesson is not the content, it's the relationship. And if they can feel different here compared to everywhere else in the world, then we've won them. And that's all that really matters. So just some...
Can I just add to that? Being the principal of a school with 27% of my children being either having an ASD diagnosis or ADHD diagnosis, there are some key things: predictability, consistency, and I guess that first one around predictability is really crucial. Sometimes, I'm not criticising anyone, but sometimes we come to church and we're not sure where Sunday school is today. And I know that this is out of our hands, especially at St. Mary's recently, but where is Sunday school? What time does it start? What do we have first? Who's our Sunday school teacher? All of those factors in terms of predictability play a huge factor in the children being settled and ready to learn. I use that language, but I guess back to what Rosemary was saying is church has an advantage that is nowhere else. Our servants actually have an advantage that teachers don't have, in that they can love us as servants and we can show affection. And there is that level of, as teachers, we're told not to even touch a child. Whereas as servants, we have that relationship with our children that we serve and the parents, obviously. So we need to use that to our advantage in a way to further build that relationship. Yes, they may only see you once a week, but the fact that what they get at church, they don't get at school, they may not get at home, we need to use to our advantage.
I'd love to ask Abuna Michael or any of the fathers, for example, how they would go about telling maybe one of the parents if they were to experience some of this. Maybe we can go around every father in just a minute or so.
Well, I'll tell you about our experience in the school. When we notice that something different with a child, we make a meeting with the parents. And we explain to them that what is this happening there needs help. It doesn't mean that they have a huge problem or they're gonna fail in their life, but we try to let them know that if they can find the proper help in the right time, we can really save a lot of anxiety in the future. With the schools, we have connections. We have a lot of connections where we can get these children to get the help they need. I think the church needs also to do the same thing, but it has to be through a quiet, nice, confidential discussion with the parents. Don't show it to the kids. Don't tell the kids that you have a problem. Don't tell the kids that you are different than the other kids, for this is not going to help them. But you might tell them, well, we need all to go to somebody to talk about issues. And those people are experienced with these things. And when you go to a doctor or a specialist talking about these things, there's a lot of doors can be opened. And the experience of this, that things which could be handled early, it becomes very easy to get out of it and get the kids to the normal life, and even better. And remember also, the kids who got issues like these ones are special kids. They are not failure kids, they are very special kids. And actually, in the same time, they have other talents which can really overcome these things. We just need to find it out. We need to find it out with the help of professionals, or perhaps a very kind, very patient way of dealing things. And as you heard now, that a special relationship with the kids, relation of parenthood, of love, of close to them, will help a lot to progress from these things. I have seen a lot of kids with special types of problems when they are young. Now they are all adults. You never know that these things ever was there at all. It has been dealt with. They are getting very well. It didn't stop them to progress in their life. Some of them even achieved much more than the normal kids.
Thank you so much, Abuna. Abuna, one of the servants also asked for the fathers if they find that often parents would blame the church if their kids were to leave church or stop believing in God. So it's a question directed to the fathers. It's to 5:30. We still have a few minutes to absorb as much as we can from everyone's experience.
We might need another meeting.
Abuna Habib, do you find that parents often will blame the church or feel like the church is responsible for their children not coming to the church as they grow up?
Always we face this problem and always blaming church and blaming Sunday school, but we neglect our target at home. And we ask ourselves where we be there. Quality time, يعني just to say quality time is very, very, very important. We see many people, many mothers or fathers, just to have a peace of mind, give their mobile to their kids just to play games and they don't know what they are doing. And they blame and they cry after this. So the quality time we spend, the children are treasures at ours. They are the treasures in our life. So we should give them good time, and spend a good time with them. No excuse of this. Some people saying we are here for our kids, we live for our kids. But I have to ask ourselves what we give to our kids. What's the time we give to our kids?
Thank you so much, fathers. I think we want to thank our Holy Fathers for today's discussion, and also our professionals, the psychologists, the principals, and all their contribution. Oh, yes.
There's one thing I forgot to add. If we could all put our hand up if we want Father John to answer one of the questions. Please put your hand up. There's a question, and Abuna John's going to answer this question for us. Magid.
My question is about comparison. Like when your kids compare themselves to other kids, I think you might have touched on it earlier, and it could be things about, they have access to screens, or they dress a certain way. I find my kids go to a Catholic school, and I find that I have to sometimes say, we're different, and I stop there, and sometimes I end up saying, maybe putting the other group down unintentionally, just to make it seem a bit obvious that there is a difference. What advice do you have on that?
Thanks, Magid. Abuna John, what does Otsek suggest for that when we send our kids to school and they might be different and compare, and they come back and say, why aren't we like that, Abuna? So Otsek, please share from your experience as a parent and as a father.
Why can't we do the same thing they're doing? Why aren't we allowed to do it, and why are they allowed to do it?
I struggle with the same thing, always comparing myself to others. But I think we'll leave it to one of the psychologists to tell us.
It's a sorry, there's so many different things, obviously, that that come up with that. But ultimately, at any stage of life, like we still, I'm sure, do this as adults, but we always want what's better or what we think is better. And I think one of the big things in with school age kids is that a lot of kids just want to be socially accepted and look like the other kids around them. Even it boils down to things like what lunchbox you bring. I remember in primary school, our food was different to what the other kids brought to school. And so you'd go home and ask for chicken nuggets like all the other kids. But everyone, all of our kids just want to be socially accepted and just want to be loved and looked at in a positive way by peers at school. But I suppose what a lot of our kids may not understand is that maybe what peers do at school and maybe what other families may do is not necessarily in line with what we would want for them or what the church may want. So it's hard, but being able to I guess explain that in a gentle way, while also acknowledging that to your kid it's very upsetting that they don't get to, I don't know, whatever kids want to do these days. What do kids want to do? But acknowledging that that's very upsetting for them, but unfortunately, we do things X way because of X, Y, Z. I think you made a good point before around always giving reasons. The reason may just be that, Jesus taught us differently, whatever it may be. But also being able to give your kids some freedom to be able to do something that may be a good middle ground is also a good idea. But then there's other things that kids may compare themselves to other kids for, which may be things we can't change. And I think that's the tough bit where, as a parent, being able to sit with your kid's sadness and being able to share that with them and being able to, tell them that it does suck and, that you wish things, but you love them no matter what, and et cetera, et cetera. I think it really all boils down to a lot of difficulty with self-esteem and self-perception. And so being able to, lift your child up in those ways and help them to see, that they are really wonderful and that they do have awesome things here, sort of is another part of that as well.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Maria, and thank you to our lovely panel for everything today. I think we can probably have 3 or 4 of these events and workshops. Parenting is something that's special to all of us as parents. So we want to thank all our panelists, and we also want to invite you all to join us. There's a light dinner in the hall. We'll have a light dinner, and then we'll be back at church at 6 o'clock where we'll pray Vespers together. So we'll enjoy a light dinner. Arabic Vespers will be in St. Mary's Church, and the English Vespers will be in St. John's Church. So we'll have half an hour to enjoy a meal together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our Father who art in heaven, now, love of God the Father, the grace of His only begotten Son, the communion and fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with you all. Go in peace. May the peace of the Lord be with you all.
Very well done, very well done. Oh, very well done يا حبيبي. ايوه كده عسل زي ما هي.
Quiet.